Drivers, start your engine!
Hey, race fans, welcome to the Hoopers Radio Network. Welcome to the Drafting the Circuits program. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about this past weekend in racing and preview next week. Joining me in the studio, I have Luis Torres and Richard Youden. What's up, fellas?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Going pretty well. So who picked Chris Buescher for Bristol?
If he wasn't on my radar, I think I said Chase Elliott because I didn't have confidence in Ryan Blaney.
Yep. So interesting Bristol race. So this is, I believe, the first time that an entire round of the playoffs have been won by non-playoff drivers. So you have non-playoff drivers going 3 for 3 right there between Bubba Wallace, Eric Jones, and then Chris Buescher this week. And for Chris Buescher with the RFK racing team, definitely a good boost for those guys. Those guys started out strong at Daytona in the qualifying races, but since then they've had a really, really tough season. So, it's really, really good for that whole group. It's been a while since the Roush guys have won a race, hadn't it been, Louise?
It's been since Ricky Stenhouse Jr. back in 2017 when he won those 2 races at Talladega and Daytona.
Won the plate race. So it's been a hot minute, and Brad Keselowski being the new owner there. Brad also a big fan of Chris Buescher. He one of the first things he wanted to do was make sure he kept him on that team, and then so Buescher certainly proving his worth, having a good run today, where a lot of guys ran into some trouble. We saw a number of flat right front tires on Ford cars mainly. We saw Ryan Blaney lose a tire in the pits and then have it roll all the way down pit road. We saw a couple of the Toyota cars struggling with power steering issues that put both the 23XI guys out. And Kyle Busch lost an engine. So at the end of the day, the elimination looked like some pretty bad news for Richard Childress Racing because both of his cars this year were eliminated, being Dillon and
Tyler Reddick, who was one of my championship 4 picks.
Yep, Tyler Reddick, and then the guy they've signed for next year, Kyle Busch, was also eliminated. So, pretty tough time for those guys, but probably the toughest time of all. The other guy eliminated, Kevin Harvick, just could not get anything going in this round of playoffs. Had a decent race going at Bristol, had a horrible pit stop that put him well behind, and he just could not make up the points. You figure he was pretty well out of the points. He had to, gain those points, not only, just gain those points. We had to gain those points on the 4 guys ahead of him. So it was a tall order going in. It was pretty much a must win, but it didn't work out for Harvick. So you've got 2 former champions out of the playoff early.
Yeah, past, present, and future RCR drivers are all up. Of course, Harvick drove for them from 2001 to 2013. But for Busch and Harvick in particular, his reliability issues kind of really hurt them horrendously. Just when you thought Harvick was on the rise with those wins late in the regular season, he's not even going to be anywhere close competing for the championship again. For Kyle Busch, who's in his last year, that maybe he want to end his tenure on a positive note, won't happen because they're done for. And I think, and the same for Reddick. Well, like I mentioned, he was one of my 4 drivers that I had in my championship 4, as I had Harvick as well. So it's, for my bracket, it's pretty much dead in the water at this point, but
yeah, it's
don't pick any lottery numbers this weekend, will he, Louis? Don't pick any lottery numbers.
No, I'm just going to go not right now. I'm just going to rely on the Mariners. Hopefully they clinch on my birthday instead of the day before.
All right, so
Yeah.
save that
Yeah.
for save that for our baseball podcast. So anyway, though, so this is the first run with the Gen 7 car on the traditional Bristol. We did run Bristol earlier in the season as a dirt track. So this is the first time we got to look at the cars on Bristol, and reviews are pretty mixed. A lot of the guys said it was just nearly impossible to pass. And obviously we saw the problems with the tires, which, then again, that's generally related to, Goodyear making their recommendations and then the crew chief saying, yeah, whatever. We'll do what we want to do. But it was kind of odd to see that same type failure over and over. I think all three of the Penske cars all had kind of the same failure there, and handed to Austin Cindric, right, who had, I think, at least 3 cut tires and a couple of long pit stops for repairs, 7 laps down, squeaks through the round and makes it into the next round of the playoffs. You know what I mean? That's it's a combination of other people's bad luck and his own luck being not quite as bad. But golly, that kid just snuck through.
Yeah, he's gonna be on the hot seat for this round because you have Texas, Talladega, and the Roval. Cindric showed what he was able to do. He did quite well in the All-Star race. We'll see how that'll translate for a much longer race. Then you have Talladega, where super speedways, anybody can be in it, and then the Roval. So with him still in this round, I'd say keep an eye on Cindric being a guy that will make it to the next round with these.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking a super speedway race. He's won at Daytona. He's a very skilled road racer. So the Roval plays in his hands well. Yeah. So, but of the rest of the guys, though, there's nobody really standing out as just really dominating this thing. We've got just kind of a mixed bag of different folks at the top every week. And again, none of the playoff drivers have won in the playoff yet. You got to admit, Christopher Bell's been fairly consistent. Chase Elliott is started at the top and dropped down from there. So he's not been setting the world on fire. So it's this is really anybody's game right now.
It's pretty wide open, but I feel like this round could set the tone for the rest of the playoffs. I think guys for Chase Elliott, he's in a similar spot with Austin Cindric, where can't quite cut him out on any given race. But then there's Joey Logano quietly knocking on the door once more in these early on in this playoffs, that where not many people are expecting much of him, but that's where he's at, is probably absolute dangerous behind the wheel, because as you saw in 2019. The year with the big three, nobody said Logano was going to amount to much. No, 2018. Kyle Busch was 19. 2018, nobody saw much of Logano, and then boom, he went on to win the championship. I feel like history is kind of repeating itself, but time will tell.
Yeah, I think another guy that's been pretty good through all 3 of these races is Denny Hamlin. Is another guy you're going to need to watch out for. Because he's pretty versatile driver, and he's he kept himself. He's not at the top, he's not near the bottom. He's kind of right where he needs to be to get through the next couple of rounds. So now, Richard, I did have a technical question for you since you've worked on these NASCAR cars here. So we saw where the cars had the power steering failures there, and then the some of after the 2 23XI cars went out, we heard Denny Hamlin's crew chief telling him to try to not load the steering. But then our race commentator said there's no way to not load the steering. But would you please explain to me how you would not load the steering?
Yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds, really. I mean, you obviously, depending on your driving style, has a huge bearing on every aspect of the car's behavior. But I think what he's referring to when he determines to load the steering is how you lean on the car and almost slide the car through the corners. When you do that, you do put excessive load through the steering system and many other parts of the car. But they are fundamentally designed to do that. And the exact failure, I don't know what caused these failures, but they're typically belt-driven systems, and each manufacturer does it differently in terms of the, goodness me, you can't really see it these days when you open the hood of your car, but back in the day, you used to be able to sit there and see your pulley arrangement and all your belts and everything laid out in front of you.
Yeah, big old serpentine belt there. Yep.
Yeah, to have your alternator, your oil pump, your water pump, your power steering pump, all those sort of things, all connected to, and the tensioning belts and all this sort of stuff. And what you'll have is that teams will sort of play with the tensioning belts and trying to get them as tight as possible to reduce energy losses within there, to make them as efficient as possible. And they probably got a number which they're like, okay, this is the tension we can put in the belt, and this is the loading that we're going to put through it. And it may be that obviously they're all from the same engine, they all have the same strategy, if you like, for how those belts are run, and they all may run to the same tension, and they may just be a little bit concerned that they're putting too much stress through that pulley mechanism and potentially damaging the belt there. And of course, that could have, that belt control. If you lose that belt, then you have a plethora of issues going on that may manifest itself in the power steering. It may manifest in the water, oil pressures, temperatures, whatever it may be. So it's voltages, the battery fails. So it's a pretty key piece of equipment in there. But they're probably just trying to avoid overstressing these parts on the car, and not. So when you turn into the corner, sort of be a little bit slower into the corner. You can obviously let the car have its head and let it drive out of the corner, because you're not really putting much load through the steering there. But definitely under braking, try not to steer and brake at the same time, sort of thing. That'll give the steering system a little bit of a rest from some of those excessive loads.
Okay, yeah. So, which obviously not the best thing for your lap times. Slow.
It's not a huge thing.
It's not a huge thing, yeah. But at the same time, if your alternative is to end up in the garage with the broken steering, go ahead and.
But you're saying that it's one of those things that you often see when single-seater drivers, especially the IndyCar guys and some of the F1 guys, are told to lift and coast and save fuel. A lot of them go faster because they're actually bringing the car into a more natural operating window for its performance, rather than how the driver's actually driving it themselves.
Yes, I understand. All right, so again, and we haven't seen these type of failures this year on this car till we get to Bristol. But then again, Bristol's a bit of a unique track with the combination of the short lap and the high banks. So I definitely probably puts more of a load on the steering. So that's all data everybody can learn and apply to next year. Yeah, go right ahead.
Does track surface have a factor into that kind of thing, or it's just in general? Because I know Bristol is concrete rather than asphalt like it was 30 years ago. Track
surface will have a bigger impact on tyre wear. Yes, you do get a little bit of sort of tyre slip and tyre lateral grip rather than longitudinal grip. So, yeah, it will have a bit of an impact. Will it impact the actual steering system itself? Possibly, but not. There's probably a large number of other factors going in there that before you start looking at that level of detail in terms of trying to analyze these failures, I'd imagine.
Gotcha.
All right. So the next race Texas?
Yep, Texas Motor Speedway. The 1 point race. The 1 points race on the calendar for the track.
Right, because they did the All-Star race. Yeah. Now my understanding is they're supposed to put that damn sealer on the track again before the race, which is going to wreck the IndyCar race in March. Again, I hate to say that, but that's as soon as I read that, I'm like, oh Lord, we're gonna have another shitty IndyCar race in the spring.
Well, it's time to prep a bonus practice session. Let's get Willpower to tell IndyCar about it once more. See, because I felt like that made a difference last time around for IndyCar, and I applaud that IndyCar are keeping Texas Motor Speedway on the calendar, which is interesting how that it was a track announcement before IndyCar had officially released and yet to be released official calendar, mind you. But it's good to see Texas back for IndyCar. Just curious, what did they do about it when that time comes along in the spring, because I feel like they're going to have to add another practice session. Everybody on?
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to say we did that at Texas and at Iowa with the extra, right? Or was it Gateway?
I think it might have been Gateway because Iowa had a double header.
Right.
So everything was in scrambles as far as the scheduling is concerned due to its force of nature having a double header.
Yep. All right.
I mean, they've got to do that though. They've got to. You know, it's a necessary evil, really. Tracks like this have to accommodate both an IndyCar race and a NASCAR race just to keep afloat. So you know, it's a necessary evil that you're going to have to go through these. You know, having to sort of run extra practice sessions just to clean the track surface or get the track surface more in your tire compound's operating window, comparing a stock car to an IndyCar.
Right, and that race coming up at Texas in the spring as well is going to be the IndyCars will be running in conjunction with the NASCAR Truck Series, which was a common occurrence in the late 90s, early 2000s, the early IRL. They would often.
That was my first ever exposure to NASCAR. Was actually 2010 at Kansas when the IndyCar was the undercard to the Truck Series.
Yes.
And that's where I met my wife, ironically. There you go.
There you go. Right. Yeah. So the trucks and you always seem to bring this up, or somebody will bring this up, that the issue is that the Goodyear and Firestone rubbers don't necessarily play well with one another when they're all on the track at once. So we'll just have to see how that plays out for the IndyCar guys coming up when they race there, early next season. So, but the NASCAR's got their schedule out. Formula One has announced their schedule for next year, which includes the Vegas race, which is going to be a 4-day event with the Saturday night race. So that looks like there's going to be jam-packed with activity. NASCAR will be moving its all-star race to North Wilkesboro, which will be interesting to see. I've not been down there in years, but I mean, they lacked the infrastructure then for the crowds that they got back in the 90s and stuff. But I don't know what's different and what's changed. We'll just have to
all
see.
All I know is going to be one hot ticket. It's going to be one hot ticket and a tough one, probably to accommodate. Because like always, the All-Star race clashes with Indy 500 qualifying weekend, so time will tell which one I'll have to go with. Because this is like you talk about necessary evil, that's kind of my necessary evil. Is which one would I go? Do I go cover Wilkesboro in its return that has the truck race on the undercard, or see Indy 500 qualifying pending if somebody wants to pick up Kyle Busch for the 500.
And there was a little news on that. Evidently, a guy named Sam Schmidt, who's aligned with McLaren, has made a public comment that say, I wouldn't mind running Kyle Busch, who's got his phone number. So I don't know how serious he was with who's got his phone number, but certainly McLaren is not beyond adding an extra car for the 500, although they are planning to expand to 3 cars full time. So will they want to add a 4th is really it's a tall order when they're just now expanding to 3. But we've seen it before. We've seen the Foyt guys run 4 cars at the Speedway, with very limited resources. So
yeah, so that's be interesting to tell. But to go back to the scheduling, little tidbits. Well, as far as, of course, you have Chicago, but time will tell. The Chicago one will be materialized with the ongoing drama behind the scenes with the city of how they're going to handle it. Also, that it's confirmed that Road America won't be on the Cup calendar. The Truck Series will not be returned to Sonoma. Instead, there will be the Xfinity Series, which probably all but tell who knows how the car count for Arcalet's going to be now with Xfinity going down there, which is the week after Portland. So they got back-to-back road courses. And mind you, we have 8 road courses in the Xfinity Series. I know some people are throwing a tirade a little bit about there's too many road courses in Xfinity. If you say that, then I don't have an issue with it, to be honest. There's some people it's like, is it going to put a huge strain going from Portland to Sonoma, if memory serves correctly? Then they head to Nashville after. So I feel like if they want to make it fun for the Xfinity Road Course, you have a little bonus event, kind of like similar with the Dash for Cash or what IndyCar has. Like, you keep track who's collected the most points on road courses, and you get a bonus prize money out of it or something like that. I think it would be neat for them.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I have no issue with road racing. I grew up watching road racing.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, it was later in life I started to watch ovals, you know. So, but I actually think the Xfinity guys put on a good show. It's all the road races. I always enjoy them. They're always fun to watch, you know, especially when we're doing things like picking up Sargento banners and dragging them around the track. So
and it worked out for Josh Bilicki quite well.
Yeah. Got him a sponsorship deal out of that. So that was pretty fun. So, but in other news, right? So, okay. Well, do we want to go ahead and talk about Texas real quick before we move on to other topics?
I think we can wrap up Texas since we kind of dove into from a little bit of the IndyCar along the way. But I think for Texas, all we can ask for is hopefully it's a much better show, because everybody has been up in arms at the worst race of the year all across the board. Many will say the All-Star race. Other than Martinsville, many will probably say the All-Star race is probably the second worst race of the whole calendar season. So be curious what kind of show they're going to put on when it's a full race distance.
Well, who do you like for the race win? Again, this has been hard to pick this first playoff round.
Yeah, I still think you look no further than Penske. I think this is the one where Ryan Blaney's going to break the modern era record for most different winners in the season, in spite of not having his crew chief Jonathan Hassler, as you mentioned earlier, with the tire problems.
Right, I believe he's got a 4-race suspension, if I read that correctly. Yeah, so and 3 other guys also suspended for at least 1 race with it. But I mean, that was pretty blatant mistake there on their part. That tire rolled all the way down pit road. So it's not just an uncontrolled tire, but it just totally got out of their hands there. So, but so you like Blaney. I like, I want to say we are probably going to have another non-Chase winner and another new winner this year, because I'm going to go with Martin Truex, who finally gets something going this season, and since say that Truex wins a race and he continues the non playoff guys winning. So, and Richard, you'll abstain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
little irrelevant factoid of what if factoid for Truex. If Truex actually did make the playoffs and win the championship, he would have 40 points in a super license. Actually, no, I had to double check on that. He would have been the closest one than Chase Elliott on that. Because
so you the super license that you get your last 3 years, except
4 years now.
It's 4 years if one of those years is 2020, right?
Yeah.
So we're still in that window. So, but you get your 3 best results out of the last 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm. And nobody on the Cup side will get it.
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't a Cup only pay like 15?
Yeah,
15 for a Cup champ. Yeah. So. And
the top 8 only get points out of. So for Chase Elliott, he'll be, even if he wins the championship, he'll be 2 to 3 points shy. If Truex made the playoffs and win the championship, he would have been much closer or actually meet the quota had he made the playoffs and win the championship. But we'll never know now.
Well, here's the thing, though. I haven't heard of any Formula One teams looking at Martin Truex.
No, I know.
So I guess he doesn't really need a super license.
No, I know. Nobody thinks about that. That's why I said little what if fun fact, because one thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about last time around is the fact that the Colin Hurd Red Bull thing kind of mellowed out now.
Yeah, I think that deal is dead in the water. The FIA is not going to approve his anything on a super license, which has brought up a lot of conversation about the super license and the fact that it is so slanted heavily towards FIA sanctioned events. Will anything change because of that? I don't know, but you've got a lot of different people saying that it needs to, including, guys like Zach Brown, and Helmut Marko or really feel that needs a change. So
well, because they're bound to say that because they've got invested interest in the deal.
yeah, exactly,
Ironically,
yeah.
If it was on
Ironically,
the other foot, I'm sure they turn around and say, no, it's fine as it is. So,
right. Yeah, I guess it depends on who you want in there, but yeah, but I believe they need to take a look at. I think IndyCar is weighted a little less than it should be. Colton Hurd he needs to do better than finish 7th and 8th and 10th in the championship.
He has to finish in the
for
top
one,
5
yeah,
next year, or
yeah.
5th or better. No exceptions for 2023. And it boils out if he really wants to as well.
He's going to lose one of his one of his will drop off. I think his 7th place the 10th place should drop off.
Well, no, because it's 3 in the last 4, isn't it?
Yeah, we got 2020 was his best point season. So that's the one that's the big circle.
Well, yeah, but starting next year, you're just the last 3 because the 2020's exemption is gone, man. So you're talking 21, 22, 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the 2020 exemption will be over. 2020 will be 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wow, that was
of course, yeah.
That went fast. So, but the Alex Palou contract drama is now settled. And McLaren officially drivers will be Felix Rosenqvist, Pato O'Ward, and Alexander Rossi. Palou will be returning to Ganassi Racing, and everybody seems pretty pleased as is. But I did uncover an interesting little tidbit about Felix Rosenqvist that happened about the time that McLaren started looking at Palou. And this was a tidbit. It came from Marshall Pruitt, and he was on somebody's podcast discussing his little stream of consciousness fever dream article. And he said there was a whole bit he left out because it was just, the article was too long as it was. But the gist of it was that at one point in time, Felix asked if he could move to Formula E. Reason being, his steady girlfriend, who's, also from Europe, really missed living in Monaco and being based over there. And she wasn't happy living in the States. And, trying to keep her happy, he thought maybe if he would return to racing in Europe. But then somewhere in between there, the two of them broke up, and Felix said, I really do like the IndyCar series more than I like that girl. So, so yeah, so
I was gonna briefly say, so well, he's thinking big picture here, and then you mentioned breaking out. I was like, well, then take back what I was thinking of. But no, that is interesting because you don't really see much of that. I mean, the big thing right now, the big drama is about Giselle and Tom Brady, about relationships and all of that. Where do you stand the line? It seems like Rosenqvist was going to think about relationship first, but now they're no longer together, I guess. So that now is up to him now.
Yeah, and then he, and so that, which is probably why when Felix said no, I would like to stay on the IndyCar team, why that kind of cooled on the whole Palou deal, and just let that work itself out where he ends up at Ganassi. He's still got a testing contract, Formula One testing deal with McLaren. He, matter of fact, had a chance to go test the Formula One car, the older Formula One car very recently, and he's tremendously enjoyed that experience. So, again, McLaren is getting all these guys that are contracted to other teams between, Colton Hurd and Alex Palou out there testing the Formula One cars. So pretty interesting what we have shaking on there. So
yeah, at least that mellowed out. That's a huge sigh of relief, because I'd mentioned when the whole Kyle Busch to RCR announcement came, where they brought him the Indy 500, I wasn't too hot with the idea about Busch to McLaren, because I said once the Palou thing mellows out, if they did, fortunately they have, then I'll look into Kyle Busch maybe going to McLaren as a other choice besides Penske as far as the Chevy camp.
Right. Like I said, I'll die on the hill that Penske doesn't enter a 4th car at the 500. But but who knows? They may in fact do that. You never know. So
yeah. But I think at the end of the day, now silly season seems to be much more calmer now. Now we pretty much know the key pieces of the puzzle, the major ones, as far as the top teams. and now they can focus on 2023. And obviously, we mentioned Herta is to concentrate to get a top 5 championship year. For Palou is to come out much stronger. Albeit Palou finished in the top 5 in points at season's end with the win in Laguna helping him a lot. Time will tell. That third year is going to be crucial for him to see if that 2021 title is what he's actually capable of. Because we didn't really see much of that in 2022 because the Penske's were just more stronger, consistent in terms of winning rather than be points collecting.
Yeah. Penske did win the lion's share of the races this year. Other than Indianapolis, they were pretty much in the mix at every single event, other than the big one. So now so there's a few open seats that we still, Foyt's got. I believe they're bringing Dalton Kellett back, but the other car is up in the air, and I would imagine that Linus Lundqvist is maybe on the short list for that because he's got the Indy Lights scholarship. And again, there's a couple of decent guys in Europe that are maybe on somebody's short list. Juncos has a second car, but I think most of the other things are short up here.
And there's also,
I was going to say Carpenter. Yeah, I think Carpenter's pretty solid. He's re-signed VK, and I want to say that Daly's last contract was a multi-year, so I believe Daly's still in the fold. I believe he still has the BitNile money, until that whole bubble burst. So they seem to be set there. Ganassi's got their lineup set.
I thought there was talk of Ed Carpenter adding a third car. Maybe I'm mistaken on that one. Is a car that would be swapped between Ed and another driver.
So yeah, instead of
Peretta.
Well,
I know they're aligned with them.
They're aligned with Peretta. Peretta obviously going to be running Simona. She's contracted for them for next year. But yeah, I mean, Ed he run a third car just on the ovals this year for himself. But I think he's toying with the idea of running the third car and then having, like the situation he did in years past with Mike Conway, where he and some of the other guys he had there, where he split the seat time, let somebody else do the road course, then he would do the oval. So I think eventually Ed probably needs to step aside from the cockpit and just focus on because honestly the results haven't been there the last couple of years for him.
No, I mean he was the perennial sort of high points, high qualifier at Indy, and never quite got the job done there. And then it was like, it just never sort of materialized, did it?
Right. I think his best Indy was an 18, where he led a good bulk of the race, but in the closing stages, Will Power was just too much for him, and then he ended up with a very disappointed second place there. But but since 18, Carpenter himself hasn't done much. I mean, his team hasn't been bad. I mean, VK has won a race. Daly is Daly. He's consistently 18th in the championship. I don't know why.
Shines
people
well,
love,
when it comes to the 500, so he shines well. That's what I mean. When it comes to the Indy 500, I specify just that one race.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of stock put into the Indy 500. So, but let's talk about Daniel Ricciardo for a second. We'll move away from IndyCar and talk about Formula One a little bit. So there's some speculation that came out after the Italian Grand Prix that perhaps Ricciardo would accept a position as a reserve driver with Mercedes if he can't find a full-time seat with somebody else. Richard, have you heard this one?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of rumors on that one. Obviously, Mercedes have sort of talked quite positively about him, and so he deserves a drive and blah blah blah, all these sort of things. But it's a little bit of a surprise that he hasn't been taken up earlier in one of these roles, and it wouldn't be a bad move for him. I don't think it would obviously keep him in a top team with a lot of exposure. Don't quite know what to make of that one, really.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, people keep assuming that Hamilton can retire at any minute, which he could. He could,
Of course he could, yeah.
He could pull a Niki Lauda and just get out of the car, and in Canada. and say, I'm done. But I mean, like, Lewis really hasn't hinted himself that he's going to do that. I think Lewis still has a number of good years yet. I think that after this disappointing season, hopefully Mercedes can get their act together a bit better with their car. And I think Lewis has something to prove. I really feel that he feels like he's got a little bit of unfinished business, although, he owns nearly every record in Formula One right now. So it's hard to say what unfinished business do you have, but beating Max straight out in a fight would be some unfinished business, I could imagine.
Yep. No, I certainly agree. I think that everybody's sort of always playing with this sort of like what Lewis is going to do, but I think Lewis is going to be around for a little while longer. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't see him walking away from the sport, but everybody just like to, heck, who thought Tom Brady was to be around this long? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and it's just funny how some guys walk away, and then like Rosberg, just one day he's there, one day he's gone. I said, won the championship, see ya. But I don't think that's. I think Lewis, as outspoken as he is, and as flamboyant as he is, and how much he loves his lifestyle, I think he's still a true racer at heart, and he enjoys being behind the wheel. I firmly believe that in my heart. Yep. No, I totally agree with you on that one. All right. So Richard, what do we have on the Haas side? Do we hear anything about who may go in there to replace Mick Schumacher? I think they're. It does look like Mick's on his way out. It looks like they've got. They're testing with Giovinazzi at the upcoming on a free practice session in the coming weeks. So there's obviously some interest there on that end, but who knows? There's a lot of good drivers out there who probably won't get a look in because of circumstance rather than because they're not good enough. I really don't know. It'd be a shame if they don't get it, but if you're one of these top drivers, that there's somebody like, Daniel Ricciardo would be a great hire for them, but I just can't see that happening, unfortunately. Right. Then, of course, Nick DeVries is suddenly a very hot property. He's been linked with the AlphaTauri seat. Is that correct? Yeah, I mean, he's openly said, I don't think he's open. Well, he did say in an interview that he's great to have all this interest in him, but he's already got I think he's saying that he has a contract signed already for next year with the team. And I think the play is going to be that he will end up at AlphaTauri, and that will allow Gasly to move on to. Well, you say that you allow Gasly to move on to Alpine, but then you see Christian Horner turning around and saying that, that he, De Vries and Piastri are guys that he wished he'd kept in the Red Bull, or he'd managed to get into the Red Bull camp when he had an opportunity. So it makes, maybe he's saying that he doesn't have them. I don't know. It's a guy, they're doing really good at keeping this one to the chest, cards close to the chest on this one. I'll give him that much. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it'd be good to see Nick in a full-time Formula One ride, even though it may not be, he was phenomenal, yeah. Yeah. I mean, just that one outing in the Williams there, you're like, wow, this is like, is that a different car? Yeah. So, but yeah, like I say, Latifi should be very worried. So,
and plus, it won't hurt having another world champion on the grid as well, because of course, De Vries is a Formula E world champion, so that's where I'm getting across. Yeah. I mean, it gives added weight to the Formula E, series, but whether it's really a big card for them, I don't know. And that's fair, and that's fair too.
I don't know how many super license points do you get for Formula E championship?
You get quite a lot.
I was gonna say it's
more than NASCAR. It had to be more. It got to be more than NASCAR.
Well, sure, yeah. I was gonna say
I will tell you right now.
All right,
Formula E 30 points, same as the Formula 3 Championship and same as the World Endurance Hypercar Championship.
So there you go. So it's looked upon pretty favorably.
Yeah, and it's actually after. So IndyCar has more points for first and second, and then from third down, it's the same as IndyCar. So IndyCar is ranked ahead of Formula E in super license points,
which is valid. I can understand that for sure because of like I can totally get with Formula 2, IndyCar, and all those having the 40 as your championship number of points for the super license and all that. There's some of them that's like you can weigh a little bit more different. It's just
my issue with the Formula 2 is you get 40 points for finishing first, second, or third. You know what I mean? The same weight is given to the top 3 guys in Formula 2, and that's the only series that has a point structure like that. And obviously it's to put weight towards their own feeder series.
Yeah.
But yeah, just at the end of the day, who's more qualified, the guy that finished second in IndyCar or the guy that finished third in Formula 2. You know what I mean? It's so, but because both series are, very competitive. So I don't know.
Oh yeah. No,
I don't make the rules.
No.
Yeah, but I don't make them either.
Yep. So any surprises on the Formula 1 schedule that was released?
Not really. Spa's in there, which I know there's been a bit of talk about that disappearing. Monaco's in there with a deal through to
25, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so that's got another 3-year contract, which I think, from what I remember in the past, Monaco's been one of these sort of places that's never had a contract. It's just always been there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, for me, is of course Spa, mostly because everybody's bringing up the clash with the 24-hour race, which of course the 24-hour race more than likely will have to be rescheduled, and because on the calendar it has both the Grand Prix and the 24 hours of Le Mans on there, but to me it's actually Qatar being back on the calendar, not so much. But the biggest thing for me is that Losail is actually the one being the Grand Prix race, not the street circuit, which was like talked about when the 1 year they had it. Of course, this year there's no Qatar Grand Prix because of the World Cup. But it's
yes, it was always known, wasn't it?
That was always
back
known.
there. So I wouldn't say it's a.
But I think the talk was because they wanted to have it on the street circuit rather than the MotoGP circuit layout.
Yeah, potentially.
That's how I remember it last year.
Yeah, I know eventually the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is going to go to a permanent circuit at some point in the near future. How that development is going, I don't know.
Yeah, they just need to watch out for the missile strikes and stuff like that. You know
yeah, that's a lot of
kind of puts a damper on the weekend.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of controversy about racing out in Saudi Arabia, fundamentally anyway. So,
certainly, yeah.
It doesn't help their cause, I don't think.
No.
They have a litany of issues that is very glaring, like the traveling and all that. Of course, when you have Las Vegas and then Abu Dhabi back-to-back weeks, and all of that stuff, but
yeah, I think yes.
They're trying to go like carbon neutral or something like that by 2030.
Yeah, it certainly put highlights there, carbon neutral. Questions that when they're doing it. I think it was like 130,000 kilometers or something they fly if you do go. And that's just going from circuit to circuit. That doesn't include going back to the UK or where else in Europe you are in between. But that's the same for everywhere. I think, as I said, I think we all know about Saudi Arabia's some of their questionable, policies that have been well documented in other sports over the last few years. So, they're going there. Hopefully, they can make a change. They can have an impact on it. But, who knows with that.
So let me ask you this, Richard, regarding Formula 1 travel. So, like, when they say that they like make a swing through the Middle East, right? Got a couple of races in a row. Do they bring the cars back to the shop in between those races, or do they kind of leave them on that continent? Or like, when they come over and do Canada and Houston, not or Coda, not too far. Do they leave the cars over on this continent, or do they send them back to the shop?
Yeah, so we've had this. So take these last 3 weeks, for example, where you've done, that triple header back to back. The cars will the cars will post race will be completely stripped back down to the tub. Engines will be taken off, gearboxes will be taken off, and then they'll be shipped in component form to the next race, and then they'll be rebuilt at the track. That could be with a different engine, the same engine, different gearbox. Obviously there's a lot of variables now with the gearbox rules and engine rules there. And new bodywork may be flown out, but the fundamental tub of the car will stay with the team as it travels around Europe. And that was the same way when they traveled around the Middle East, maybe, or when they used to do used to have like Australia and Malaysia, China, all of those sort of races in the same time period. Again, the teams and the cars will stay out there. And what some teams did, for example, was if there was 2 weeks between, say, Australia and Malaysia, which I think used to be the case for a number of years, the first 2 races of the year, and how should we put it, the big players, the senior management and the guys that we all hear of, if you like, they will travel back and forth between the UK and Australia and Malaysia and places like that. What they would do for a lot of the team members was to reduce their cost of flying people all over the world. Was actually say, okay, you finish in Australia on the Monday evening after you've done the pack up, because there's not as much urgency to get it back on the freight. And then you're not needed in Malaysia until the following Tuesday, say, for to start building the garages and the cars up. So you can either come back, but you've got 24 hours flying in each direction. So in reality, you're only going to get 3 or 4 days at home between between the events, or we'll pay for you to stay out there. We'll pay hotels, we'll pay rental cars, we'll pay flights. So guys would take 3 or 4 days off in Australia and maybe travel around that part of the world a little bit. So there's a lot of logistics going on there. It's a lot different. I mean, in the NASCAR world, some of these drivers are home before the race is even finished if they've wrecked early. It's a very different world.
Yeah, it's a much smaller area of geography that NASCAR travels to. Yeah. So now, and as far as the planes that the cars are shipped on, are those
just a regular DHL transport plane?
All right, so they're commercial airliners. They're not.
Yeah,
they're not owned by the FIA or the teams at all.
No, they may do like a charter flight, which was long enough, and every team has to be responsible for getting their parts to the right look. To typically, if it's in the UK, Heathrow, and then all of the UK based teams will ship everything on one plane. And actually, what some of the teams have for customs and the like, they have a shipping manager or something, and he will actually have to go through international shipping training courses, and they actually have a quarantined area in the factory that is designated like the same quarantine you'd have in an airport. So it would be a safe area where the shipping pallets are loaded at the factory and then never touched until they get off the plane in Australia or Japan or China or wherever it may be. So it's and this is, I remember sort of seeing them, and you sort of walk near them, and it is handled extremely seriously. You cannot, unless you've been authorized, you cannot enter this holding area, and as soon as a part enters there, it will not come back out. So there's a lot of logistics and a lot of management going on in there. It's pretty fascinating what the levels they go to.
Very interesting. Yeah, these are things I think about sometimes, but I never think to ask. But thank you so much for filling me in. That was very interesting. So where are we off to next in the world of Formula One?
Well, we're off to Russia this weekend, but we're not.
But we're not.
And then
Yeah, that's right. So we've got another weekend off.
Yeah, so Singapore the following weekend, the first weekend in October, we're up to Singapore.
Yep, the birthday weekend where Max could be a
There you
two-time
go.
world champion.
Could be, yeah.
He certainly can sew it up. Yep.
I saw a number where Max could actually beat Ferrari in the championship this year.
Max himself on points.
Yeah, he's not that far behind Ferrari's total.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor Ferrari. Well, they got no one to blame but themselves, honestly.
Exactly.
I'll tell you so. And it's been a long drought for Ferrari, but they keep showing these flashes of brilliance every now and again. You know, they're never too far out. You know, they're never back markers. You know, but they're missing that little extra. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you go back in Austria, which was only middle of July. And, you know, they were really impressive in Austria. Then Leclerc was leading in Paul Ricard at the end of July and should have won that race, but, you know, threw it away. And then it's just been Max dominating, you know, Hungary and, you know, in the Netherlands and
Hungary and everything after. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's been impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So we've got about, 10 minutes left. So, Louise, what's happening in the world of playoffs for Xfinities and trucks? Because we really haven't devoted a lot of time to talking about the guys involved in those championships. They are in their championship season as well. We did see AJ Allmendinger did win the regular season Xfinity title.
Yeah, he locked that up. The man who's been on a roll is Noah Gragson, who's won the last 3 straight races including last Friday at Bristol, where I think memory serves correctly, he has more playoff points going into. He's the number 1 seed as a result. He's already had more wins than Allmendinger, and I think he's already eclipsed Ty again. So he's been on a hot roll as of late. Time will tell if that'll translate into a strong championship run in the postseason. Because as you mentioned, Allmendinger won. Since the implementation of a regular season championship, nobody in the Xfinity Series has won it yet. No, take that back. That was the Truck Series. We'll talk about that shortly. Because I remember Austin Cindric, who was both regular season champion and won the whole thing at season's end. Same with Tyler Reddick the year prior in 2019. But yeah, Jeremy Clements, who won at Daytona, who won and then a few days later lost his playoff berth because they found something wrong with the car post race, and then 30 R&D stuff. Because obviously the win stood, but they penalized him a couple days after. They reinstated his playoff eligibility win from Daytona, so he got in. Sheldon Creed.
So when they reinstated him, did they knock somebody else out, or did they add an extra guy to playoff like they did with Gordon?
No. It put guys like Landon Castle, Sheldon Creed, and Ryan Sieg on the hot seat. And in the end, it was Ryan Sieg who got the final spot over Landon Castle and Sheldon Creed. Mind you, Sheldon Creed has had an abysmal year in the sense of luck. He's had strong cars, but luck has been non-existent for Sheldon Creed compared to Austin Hill in the RCR camp. And as for trucks, they have two more races before the championship 4. That's Talladega and Martinsville. We already know one driver that's going to go for the championship 4. That is Ty Majeski, who finally got a NASCAR win on a national touring level. It's no secret that Majeski, one of the guys who came from the iRacing pipeline, that's actually turned himself to one of the top tier super late model drivers in the country, who's won the big ones all around the United States. Finally got a win on the national level after and like guys like Austin Cindric and Chase Briscoe before him, they infamously drove the 60 car in Xfinity. They shared the ride, and out of the 3, Majeski looked like the odd man out. And compared to Briscoe and Cindric, rather semi-unproven in the sense of he hadn't had like a reputation of, this guy has it. Majeski driving super late models and winning all the big ones have really bolstered him to be a top caliber driver. And I said at the beginning of the year that the moment Majeski got that full-time deal with SourceBore, he's got to win, period. Lo and behold, he finally wins one at Bristol, which led to kind of one of the most ridiculous reasons to be mad about, driver winning. It's when they didn't do a burnout. Mind you, Majeski's from Wisconsin, A. B is Bristol, which is synonymous to Alan Kulwicki, on a more lighter note, because that's the only track he won more than once in the Cup Series. And also he was part of the driver development program dedicated to Kulwicki. So of course, like, it made sense for him to do a Polish victory lap. Yet the fans jeered him for it. It's like, come on, guys, should know better. But yeah,
I mean,
the biggest problem with the Truck
it's
Series, honestly, is the schedule structure. Kind of like how at the beginning of the year, the fans were booing because they didn't see Majeski do burnouts, when I just explained that Majeski's from Wisconsin. He's a former Alan Kulwicki driver development driver.
Now, I mean, to the fans' credit, right? It's 30 years since Alan Kulwicki's been gone. So you get a whole generation of people who probably have no idea what that Polish victory lap is.
Which is kind of sad in a way, because
it is. It's quite sad. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, you don't tear your equipment. It's like, I get all sides of like the need of doing a burnout or do a Polish victory lap or just simply park in the victory lane. It just depends on the discipline and depends on the driver, and of course the race teams, because the only time you see IndyCar burnouts is on ovals and whoever wins the championship, if necessary.
If necessary, is the burnout necessary sometimes?
That's why I say if necessary. It depends on the discretion of the team that they let them.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it's it's a silly little thing, but it's something the fans enjoy. You know,
yeah,
it's
I can understand
it. If you watch a lot of Cup racing, those guys always do that burnout, spin around, jump on the roof of the car, run and grab the checkered flag. It's all it's all a little bit of blow
your tires out, rip out the fenders that you've tweaked up and tricked. Yeah.
The mechanic.
Blow your engine,
or back it into the wall.
Back it into the wall, yeah. Make sure if we did anything funky, knock it back in place before post-race inspection. Yep. So, all right.
It's just called tactics, and it was up to the team and driver. That's what. They disregard the if necessary. It's like it's at the discretion of the team and driver what they do with it.
Absolutely, yeah. So, but okay, so that takes us to the end of our hour. So I want to thank you, Richard. I want to thank you, Louise. I want to thank the Hoobazoo Radio Network. I want to thank iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. And I want to thank you folks that listen to us. Until next week, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website.